I saved my birthday money and Christmas money.
Expecting something to happen. Waiting for the great on the booth.
Good evening. I would like to call the March 2012 Poquoson City School Board meeting to order. We'll begin with call to order, pledge to the flag, and inspirational reading. And Kelly, could you walk us through that, please?
Wyatt Helsel will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Wyatt is a first grader in Miss Freeman's class. He lives with his mom and dad, Christy and Brian, and his sister Avery, who is 2 years old. He has one dog that is a Yorkie, and her name is Joy. He also has a pet fish in his room named Rambo. Wyatt likes school because he can learn many things. He loves PE because you get to do lots of fun things. He likes to play Star Wars and video games when he is home.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow. First graders.
Brooke Martin will give an inspirational reading. She is also a first grader in Miss Freeman's class. She lives with her mom and dad, Dawn and Anthony, and her 8-year-old brother, Cooper. She has 2 dogs, Sadie and Jake, that like to play and give big kisses. She likes to come to school to see her friends and learn new things. She also likes PE because you can exercise and learn new skills. At home, she likes to play with her dogs and is starting soccer this spring.
Did you know that Dr. Seuss's real name was Theodore Seuss Geisel? Did you know that Dr. Seuss's first book was rejected by the publisher 27 times? Did you know that the story Green Eggs and Ham only contains 50 words in it? Did you know that Dr. Seuss wasn't really a doctor? Did you know that Dr. Seuss wrote and illustrated 44 children's books? Here's my favorite quote by Dr. Seuss. Think left and think right, and think low and think high. Of the things you can think up if you only try. Thank you.
Very nice. I have to say that was probably the best Pledge of Allegiance I have ever been a part of, so thank you very much. Thank you. And the moral of that story, 27 times getting rejected, I guess is never give up, huh? Y'all did a great job. Next, we will go into student presentations. And students, we'd like for all of you to wait around. Right after your presentations, we'll have a couple of recognitions. That'll be kind of short, but we'd like to have the opportunity to talk with you after everything is done. We'll take a short break, and I'll let you know. So if you can stick around, that'll be great. Our student presentation tonight, Mrs. Freeman's first grade class will be presenting the Dr. Seuss book, I Can Read With My Eyes Shut, using their own illustrations produced on their new computer program, Pixie. They will then sing a short song about the Cat in the Hat.
I Can Read With My Eyes Shut by Dr. Seuss. I can read in red. I can read in blue. I can read in pickle cutter too. I can read in bed and in purple and brown. I can read in a circle and upside down.
I can read with my left eye. I can read with my right.
I can read Mississippi with my eyes shut tight.
I can read them with my eyes shut. That is very hard to do.
But it's bad for my hat, makes my eyebrows get red hot, so reading with my eyes shut I don't do an awful lot.
And when I keep them open, I can read with much more speed. You have to be a speedy reader because there's so much to read. You can read about trees and bees and knees on trees and bees on threes. You can read about anchors and all about ants. You can read about ankles and crocodile pants. You can read about hoses and how to smell roses and what you should do about owls on noses. Young cat, if you keep your eyes open enough, of the stuff you will learn the most wonderful stuff. You'll learn about fishbones and wishbones. You'll learn about trombones too.
You'll learn about Jake the pillow snake and all about fishes too.
You can learn about ice. You can learn about mice. Mice on ice and ice on mice. You can learn about the price of ice. You can learn about sad and glad and mad. There are so many things you can learn about. But you'll miss the best things if you keep your eyes shut. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. You might learn a way to earn a few dollars or how to make donuts or kangaroo collars. You can learn to read music and play hut-zut if you keep your eyes open, but not with them shut. If you read with your eyes shut, you're likely to find that the place where you're going is far, far behind. So that's why I tell you to keep your eyes wide. Keep them wide open, at least on one side.
Thank you, boys and girls. That was very well done, and thank you, Ms. Freeman. Next, we'll move into additions and/or modifications to the agenda. Dr. Parrish, do we have any?
We have none this evening.
Okay, next we'll go into recognitions, and the first will be presentation to the art teachers by Debbie Scott from Poquoson Art League. And if I could have all the art teachers and principals come forward to the podium, please.
Actually, that's a pretty big act to follow. I mean, really, they were great. And how about those illustrations? Some future artists there. Okay, Dr. Parrish and members of the school board, the Poquoson Art League is very grateful to have this opportunity to thank our art teachers and to show our support for the arts in the schools. Over the years, the Art League has helped out with Art in a Suitcase, the Festival of the Arts, and presently the Poquoson Seafood Festival. We have the Student Juried Art Show where we award ribbons and awards for the kids. And all the monies that we get from the festival is what we use for different programs like our scholarship, tonight's presentation, and books for the library. So it is for this reason that the Art League is proud to present to the art teachers or principals checks for $750 to each school so they can use that in their programs. We are just so thankful, and their talent is just wonderful, and we really appreciate it. So.
I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of the school division to thank you, Ms. Scott, and the Art League for the support that you're providing to our art program. Poquoson is a very special place. We get so much community support for our schools, as is evidenced today, and you're certainly a big part of that, so thank you very much. At this point, we have a few other recognitions we'd like to make. We have one for a school and one for some students. So Mr. Carter is going to be handing these recognitions out. I'd like to ask Mr. Wright, the principal of Poquoson High School, to come forward. 171 schools in Virginia earned the Board of Education Competence to Excellence Award for 2012, the third-tier honor in the Virginia Index of Performance program. The Incentive Awards program recognizes schools and divisions that far exceed minimum state and federal accountability standards and achieve excellence goals established by the Governor and the Board of Education. One of those schools receiving the Competence to Excellence Award is Poquoson High School. Mr. Wright is accepting the award on behalf of the high school. Please join me in congratulating Mr. Wright and Poquoson High School for this accomplishment. Now I'd like us to take some time to recognize a few students, and if first we could have Jeffrey Ogburn come to the podium, please. Jeffrey was the Virginia AA State Wrestling Champion in the 126-pound category. He has had many wrestling awards, including 4-time district champion, 4-time regional champion, 7th at NHSCA Nationals as a freshman, 2nd in the state as a freshman, 4th in the state as a sophomore, 2nd in the state as a junior, and 1st in the state as a senior. He has an overall record of 141-29 with 88 pins, while maintaining a 3.0 GPA. Jeffrey plans to wrestle at the collegiate level for Appalachian State University. Please join me in congratulating Jeffrey for being the state wrestling champion. If Brandon Skaloot could come forward, please. Brandon was selected for the Virginia State All-District Band. Brandon is a sophomore at Poquoson High School. He was first chair symphonic band for All-District Band and will be 7th chair concert band for the All-Virginia Band. The All-Virginia Band event will be held at James River High School from April 10th to 12th. Brandon is the second 10th grader from PHS to make All-Virginia Band in 23 years. He plans to follow the family tradition and attend Virginia Commonwealth University, majoring in either music or medicine. Please join me in congratulating Brandon Skaloot for his selection to the state band. Zachary Sever, please. He's here. Zachary participated in the state DECA competition and took first place in sports and entertainment marketing. At the DECA District Leadership Conference held in Hampton, he won first place. He also placed first in the State Leadership Conference held recently in Norfolk. He is a varsity lacrosse player and sailor. He is a cadet captain in the Civil Air Patrol and serves as deputy commander for his squadron of 40 cadets. Zach hopes to attend Virginia Tech to study political science or marketing. He also hopes to serve in the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets in AFROTC and go on to become an officer in the Air Force. He now has the opportunity to compete in DECA Nationals in Utah. Please join me in congratulating Zachary and wishing him the best of luck. Dylan Smith. Dylan also competed at the state DECA competition. He took second place in human resources. He's a 12th grade student and is well respected and enjoys learning at the highest level, having taken 4 AP courses as a junior and 3 AP courses a senior year. He's involved in his church and service groups. He hopes to study psychology and marketing in college. He enjoys the human resources category in DECA and now has the opportunity to also compete in DECA Nationals in Utah. Please join me in congratulating Dylan Smith and also wishing him luck at Nationals. Hopefully we'll see both of them back here for the national awards.
Congratulations, students. Very, very good accomplishments there. This time we'll take a short break.
Favorite magazine.
Wait, which one's the bike you're taking?
This is a great magazine.
Which one's the bike that you want?
This one? It's a hybrid.
Defender heard that time. But you're just going to see a sudden run on Happy Meals to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. We will now move into our presentations and reports. And first up will be our financial update with Mr. Bowen.
Good evening, Chairman Carter, school board members, Dr. Parrish. Before I get started, I would just like to say that in the work session immediately following this meeting, the superintendent will be presenting her budget to the board. In the finance update this evening, what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk the board through our local and state budget process. A couple of things happened this General Assembly session, or a couple of things didn't happen in this General Assembly session that made things a little challenging for us in budget development. First of all, the budget process is a scheduled, planned process. General Assembly does its work, school divisions are allowed, then can do their work, and then localities can complete their work. And generally how this begins is it begins with the release of the governor's proposed budget. This happened on December 19th of 2011. And then once the governor completes his or releases his budget, that budget goes then to the General Assembly, where once convened, the House and the Senate will add amendments to the governor's budget separately. And then on February 23rd, crossover occurred. And at this point, this is where the House, once they approve their budget would then go to the Senate, and the Senate approves their budget. It would go to the House, and then they would consider each other's versions of the budget. And something happened here at this date, and I'll come back to it. But as the General Assembly starts to wind down, then there's a select group of members, some from the House, some from the Senate, and these are the conferees, and they come together and they iron out and negotiate any unresolved budget issues. Once their work is completed, the Department of Education then provides the details to school divisions on the funding for K-12 education. And what that allows us to do, that allows us then to complete our budget, the superintendent's proposed budget. From that point forward, what happens is the superintendent presents her budget to the school board. The board then has a public hearing, and then a few days later, the board then adopts a budget with or without changes. And that budget then becomes the board's budget and then is submitted to City Council by April 1st. Just let me point out that although the budget is submitted by April 1st, does not mean that the budget process is over. A couple things can happen. Once the General Assembly approves their budget, it goes back to the governor for his consideration. He can at that point add his amendments or make changes. If that happens, then the General Assembly will then reconvene. They reconvene, it's scheduled for April 6th, and if the budget bill has been changed by the governor, then the General Assembly will take those changes under consideration and then vote yea or nay to approve them. At that point, though, so that's how one of the changes can occur to our budget. Also, the second thing that can happen is we have forwarded our budget then to the city, and then the city has approximately 45 days then to act on their budget to include our request for funding. So a couple things can happen even after we've submitted our budget on April 1st. This process, if everything runs smoothly, generally is completed by June 1st of every year. But let me take you back to February 23rd on the crossover. At that point, the House had approved the budget and submitted it to the Senate, but the Senate did not elect to approve a budget. So the General Assembly then adjourned on March 10th without a budget. So the budget that we have tonight is based on the governor's proposed budget. The good news is that the General Assembly is having a special session. That session begins tomorrow. And that the purpose of that session is to take up the budget. Now, it's hard to predict how long this session may last, but we remain hopeful that the work in the special session will conclude quickly. And if so, then we will include their changes, incorporate their changes in the document that you'll be presented tonight before it goes to the city. So it just really depends on how quickly the General Assembly can complete its work. If they can't complete their work and process is drawn out, what will eventually happen is that this will delay the eventual budget for not only the school division but also the locality. So that's where we stand today on the budget.
Board questions? Comments? Mr. Davis?
Just one question. Can you give us an update on what the sales tax has been doing?
Yes, actually, there was good news from the February revenue forecast. The state revenue actually increased 17.2% for the prior year, same month for the prior year, largely dependent upon the increase in the sales tax. So sales tax has actually been robust for the year, slightly higher than projections. So we remain optimistic there that the economy is seeing a slight turnaround, and funding, hopeful that funding might get better when the General Assembly completes its special session.
Anybody else?
Mr. Bowen, do you know what the major holdup is with the crossover that you talked about? What the major discrepancies are between the House and the Senate?
Well, it's not so much the House. The House had a budget. They sent it to the Senate. It's the failure of the Senate to act on a budget. They're evenly divided, and there are some internal issues that they're dealing with. And unfortunately, the budget has been held hostage in this process. So it's created other issues, for school divisions and localities, as we have statutory requirements to develop our budgets and submit them on. So it has created problems for us, but we're hopeful that they'll work this out here very shortly.
Do you know if any of those, that division is due to public education funding? Do you have any idea?
Well, what we saw from the House, the budget that did come from the House was actually a little more favorable than what the governor presented. So we don't know where the Senate is. What came out of the Senate Finance Committee but was not voted on by the full Senate was in between the House and the Senate. So we're hopeful that what happens in the end is that we'll get something at least equal to the House or better.
Okay, and one thing I'd like to ask, you mentioned the phrase "good news" twice, but that does need to be taken with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, because we are still facing cuts, and plus what we've had over the last few years, we're still pretty much underfunded. Is that a correct assessment there?
That's very accurate. Okay. Very accurate. Thank you.
That's pretty important, I think, for everybody to realize that even though we have good news, we're still underfunded from what we really need to run our schools effectively. So. Anybody else? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next up will be operations update, Mr. Pappas.
Good evening, Mr. Carter, Chairman Carter, School Board, Dr. Parrish. In the area of safety, today at 9:45, our children were engaged in a tornado drill exercise. Every year I check and watch. I can't be in 4 schools at once, so in one school this year was primary school. Children did a great job under the direction of the staff. And at the conclusion of that meeting, administrators and I met and we reviewed how it went, what we did beautifully, and what we might think about in the ensuing years and in the immediate future. In the area of transportation, Poquoson City Public Schools will be sending 2, at least 1, possibly more, individuals to a specialized training program called Train the Trainer in conjunction with our insurance company and the National Safety Council. The program is called Where the Rubber Meets the Road. Once we get this training and we get certified, those instructors will teach our other drivers annually, every year there's a requirement, and that'll reap huge benefits both in increased safety and a reduction in our insurance premiums. I'm sure everybody's well aware that spring break is just around the corner, and maintenance will be very happy to see it come as well, because while the children are gone, we'll be busy invading rooms and doing very labor-intensive and time-consuming things that we cannot otherwise get done when the rooms are occupied. And in the area of shared services, Pleased to mention that for years, Poquoson City Public Schools has worked with the State Fire Marshal to do our annual fire inspections. It's a thorough inspection of each building. But this year is the first year that we are working with the Poquoson City Fire Department, and we've already completed 2 schools. We have 2 more to go, and it's been a good experience for everybody involved. And that's the operations report.
Questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if now at the elementary school, if they found some good interior walls for this tornado drill. I remember the first year.
Yeah, in fact,
that was a big challenge with all that windows.
Yeah, Patty and Barbara, the assistant principal and principal respectively, worked alongside me and our architects, and we threw it back to the architects, and we've come up with the best possible plan utilizing as many interior spaces as we can. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a chance to read it, but Patty wrote me a long response to today's findings, and then I'll read them and we'll review them and see what changes we think we need to make from that.
I'm sure that's a challenge. There's a lot of glass there.
Oh, a lot of glass.
A lot of windows.
Anybody else? Well, I like it when you use the phrase cost reduction. I like the insurance cost reduction possibility. That's a good thing. Thank you, sir.
Increase safety.
Increase safety, that too. Next up is the instructional update with Dr. Revia.
Good evening, Chairman Carter, school board members, and Dr. Parrish. It's a pleasure this evening to come and talk with you about what we're all about, and that's instruction. I think in light of what you've heard about budget, that oftentimes we get caught up in our budget conversations, and I just want to take a few minutes tonight and just highlight several instructional initiatives that our students, our staff, and our community are involved in. Many of you are aware that we just completed the SOL writing test earlier this month and are now actually in the throes of conducting online SOL writing practice tests, field testing for the state, and that will continue through the end of the month. But our students came to school ready to write, and our staff were ready to proctor and monitor those tests, so we're anticipating really good results. And certainly our teachers and our students continue to focus on completing their standards of learning in anticipation of our spring testing cycle, which will be in late May and early June. Oftentimes we hear a lot of grumbling about our SOL test and the fact that we have them, but it is a great opportunity for our students to showcase what they've learned, and it's also a great reflection on the instruction that our teachers are providing our students. And so our goal is to not just pass these tests, but to really look at having students excel on these tests and looking at those pass advanced scores. Our science and English teachers are beginning their work to revise their curriculum. Many of you may be aware that the Virginia Department of Education passed revised new and more rigorous standards in both English and science, and so we will be writing the curriculum this year, and then we'll be implementing it next year, much like we did last year with math, and we're implementing the new math curriculum this year, and you'll hear more about that as in the next month or two. We had 3 Odyssey of the Mind teams compete regionally, and 2 of our teams won first place and are going on to the state competition. And as you're aware, Poquoson has a long legacy of doing really well in Odyssey of the Mind, so we're looking forward to see how these teams continue their competition. Dr. Cataldo and our Gifted Advisory Council worked together to host a parent symposium last week. Some of you may have come out in the community. We had a number of our parents out, and we had presentations covering topics about summer programs for students, competitive college admissions tips, AP, the advanced placement, as well as dual enrollment classes. So we had a lot of staff doing presentations. We had community members doing presentations. But it was a great opportunity to really reach out to our parents of this special and unique group of students that we have in our school division that are very important for us to support. I'd also like to share that we are continuing to do the professional development, the work with our K-5 teachers in reading comprehension strategies. This has been going on. Our teachers are learning these strategies. They're implementing them in their classroom lessons. They're collaborating with one another. And so the work continues based on the DODEA grant that we received with both Dr. Gregory and Dr. Roselle. Another program that we have in our schools this year that's new, and that's at the Poquoson Elementary School, is an after-school help program for some of our struggling students. We have teachers who are staying after school to provide some direct and immediate instructional support, and we're really appreciative of the staff under the leadership of Mrs. Wood in reaching out to provide this to our students, and Mr. Pappas' staff is providing transportation. So again, a collaboration of our staff on many fronts. We also had several students who presented at the recent Tidewater Science Fair. Many of these science fair projects originated either in their science or math classes. We had a number of our students who placed first, second, or received honorable mention awards. We even had some students who received some individual awards. So I think you can see this was a great opportunity for students to put theoretical information and learning that they're receiving in their classroom into action in a very meaningful, relevant way, and having external experts to judge their work. And certainly this evening, our primary students reading to us and showing us a love of reading, and we appreciate Ms. Freeman, and I think she's just representative of just one teacher at our primary school who really works with our children to instill a love of learning. And certainly we had several students that we recognized with honors. So I think you can see on the instructional front, whether it's in teaching students or assessing students or supporting our parents through symposiums or providing training for our teachers, involving our community members in all of these events, that there is a lot going on instructionally that is being supported, and that our children are benefiting in a major fashion from the investment that you as a school board in this community are making to our students. And so I was reading recently, and I thought I would close tonight with a poem by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. For those of you who know me well, I love poetry, so this is just something that I think really speaks to what we're doing with our children. And his poem says, "We must not hope to be mowers and to gather the ripe gold ears, unless we have first been sowers and watered the furrows with tears. It is not just as we take it, this mystical world of ours. Life's field will yield as we make it, a harvest of thorns or of flowers." And I think you can see that we are really reaping a harvest of flowers with our students, with our staff, and with our community. And that's my report.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a date and a location yet for the state OM?
Yes, ma'am, but I don't have it off the top of my head. We can get that for you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Excuse me, the updated curricula, do our current textbooks, will they support that? Have you had time to look at that?
Once we develop the curriculum, we will look at our textbooks and make sure that they've got the appropriate resources to align to support that. Yes, sir.
Okay. How well received has the after-school tutoring sessions?
I think we've had a really good showing of students. We weren't sure with this first foray, particularly with young students, but I think we contacted the parents, made sure they were aware we were providing transportation. And it's not just a gunshot of all instruction, it's very pointed instruction to help our students who are struggling in certain areas. So I think it's really making a difference for them in school.
Good. Anybody else?
Maybe a little early. Do we know how many might be going to New Horizons for career and tech education yet?
For next year? No, sir. Our high school is working on getting their student course requests entered into our student database system, which we anticipate they'll complete probably later this month.
Anybody else? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Sidner, could you please take us through our consent agenda, please?
All right. The consent agenda for tonight consists of A, approval of minutes of February regular meeting and work session enclosed. B, approval of financial reports enclosed. C, personnel action enclosed. And D, authorization to accept and expend funds as outlined in attached requests. 3 requests enclosed.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
Second.
Dr. Revia, could you take us through a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hux?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Diggs?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Cast?
Aye.
Ms. Sidner?
Aye.
Chairman Carter?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, next we'll move into our other matters for consideration, and tonight we have an authorization for superintendent to execute a contract with Service Solutions Corporation to provide custodial janitorial services to PCPS, and there's a reading file enclosed. And Dr. Parrish, would you like to address that, please?
Yes, you do have a detailed reading file attached, but as you know, a number of years ago, the Poquoson City Schools did outsource custodial staff, and that was certainly a cost savings effort, and that has continued to be so for us. So it is time for us now to go out to bid for a new contract for our custodial services, and this is actually the same company that we've been using since we went into this, and we've been very pleased with their services. And as is noted in the reading file, they're actually proposing a reduction in cost for us through the contract, which during these very difficult economic times is quite helpful for us. So with all of that said, I recommend approval to authorize me to execute a contract with Service Solutions Corporation.
Do I have a motion to accept the authorization?
I'll make a motion as stated.
A second.
Second.
Anybody have questions or comments?
I have one question.
Okay.
The contract or the reading file says we can renew for 3 additional years. Would that be at the same cost?
No, we usually we do end up each year looking at it and renegotiating. There may be some sort of borders in which we would have with it, but we would have to do that with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I will say over the years they have been quite fair with us because especially as we've been making budget cuts, we've had some conversations of you really have to keep these costs down. So what they've done here is quite helpful to us.
Does the reduction in cost doesn't come with a reduction in services, does it?
No.
Okay.
Anybody else? Dr. Review, could you call for a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hux?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Diggs?
Aye.
Mr. Melton?
Aye.
Mr. Cast?
Aye.
Ms. Sidner?
Aye.
Chairman Carter?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Do we have any public comment tonight?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, Dr. Parrish, could you kick off our communications, please?
Yes, first I'd like to state, people watching may notice that we are missing Mrs. McDowell this evening, and I just would like to say that our thoughts go out with her and her family today. She lost her husband this week, and they are actually at the service, one of the services this evening, so please know that our thoughts are with her this evening. As Mr. Bowen outlined in his budget presentation, our budget is still very much in the hands of our state legislators, so I just want to encourage our community members. I know many of them have written letters and contacted our legislators, and to continue to do that, because until the General Assembly completes its work, we really don't know what our state funding is, and we are certainly hoping that the General Assembly is able to provide us more funding than what has been put out in the governor's budget, of which I will be basing my budget on this evening. So. Also, some questions out there with the lovely spring weather that we have and the fact that we got through this winter without any snow days. I will be bringing to you in April a recommendation to adjust our calendar accordingly because we did have 2 snow days built in. So you will see that on your April agenda in case you do get any questions about that. That is, of course, barring us getting a snowstorm in late March, but with the weather that we have today, I suspect that winter coats can now be put away. And with that said, spring break is just a week away, and I wish our students and families a wonderful spring break. And also our staff, they've worked very, very hard and certainly have earned a restful and relaxing week off that first week of April, and then we'll see everybody back, and the end of the year will fly by. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Okay, there's been a lot going on at the schools this past month. At the primary school, Miss Marty Staten from the public library came and had books for breakfast with the students, and anyone who ate breakfast the day that she came got to listen to a story and received a book to take home with them. The primary schoolers had Dr. Seuss Day, and this year is even better because school board and city council members came and read to them. And the children dressed up in costumes that range from Thing 1 to Thing 2, and even to the Grinch. And Miss Butler wants to give a huge thanks to all of you guys who came out and made that day really fun. Kindergarten registration is ongoing at Poquoson Primary School. Please come in as soon as possible and register if you have children that will be 5 before September 30th. And this week is the primary school yearly Scholastic Book Fair. Parents are welcome to come and browse Thursday evening until 8 p.m. At the elementary school, last week I talked a lot about the American Heart Association and the Jump Rope for Heart. And the elementary school raised just a little under $4,000 for Jump Rope for Heart. And the SCA sold candy grams for Valentine's Day and raised $400 for the American Heart Association. The SCA representatives were invited by Delegate Gordon Hessel to attend SCA Day in Richmond. They were able to meet and greet with Delegate Hessel, sit in a session that was going on and visit Delegate Hessel's office, and they had a fun time there. The elementary school is currently participating in Pennies for Patients, and going along with our art theme today or whatever, the art club just completed an art project using recycled bottle caps, so be on the lookout around Poquoson for that. At the middle school, last year for the American Heart Association, they raised around $700, and this year the students raised just sort of $2,000, so that was a big step. So a special thanks to the PTO, PE teachers, and Nurse Connors for coordinating that event. The desktop publishing team won 3rd place on Saturday at the Great Computer Challenge. And this week, the middle schoolers are having a March Madness Spirit Week. So those of you who want to participate, look online for the daily themes. 27-week tests begin tomorrow, so have fun with that, middle schoolers. But the schedule is online. There will be a recycle art project party after school in the cafeteria on Thursday, where students will make unique creations out of a variety of recycled items. And the NJHS induction ceremony will take place Thursday evening at 7. At the high school, the PHS band received a superior rating at the state band festival. And last week we had our Sadie Hawkins Spirit Week, and it's a yearly thing where we have a PTA student basketball game. So that was successful, and I think the juniors lost, so that's kind of sad. But I heard the seniors and the faculty did well, so congratulations. The spring sports are up and running, and we have a large number of PHS students that are involved this year. Model UN had a successful trip to Chapel Hill last weekend, and the Jazz Choir and Sound Station also had competitions this weekend, and we received 2nd and 3rd place at the Hanover Festival of Choirs. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was last meeting, Rachel Mahler came in and received her award. She actually won Best Female Soloist at that competition, so we were very happy for her. And several groups of PHS students were successful in the regional science fair competition that we've had. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Hutz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the Poquoson Education Foundation for the wonderful fundraising event that they sponsored in support of the school earlier this month. Kudos to them for their efforts, and my compliments to the wait staff and the food service staff. Food was exceptional. So thank you again.
Ms. Wilson.
Just wanted to say I really enjoyed Brooke Martin. I found her to be quite charismatic tonight, and she just spoke so eloquently, and Mrs. Freeman's class was great too, and wish that everybody has a restful spring break.
Thank you. Mr. Diggs.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. It was a great, enthusiastic start to the meeting this evening. I'd like to thank the primary school for the job they're doing with these young children. You can see the enthusiasm of the pledge and of the presentation. I know that's a result of all the teachers and the staff at the primary school, and I really appreciate that. Dr. Parrish, you made the comment, and I think it's just so true, the amount of community support that Poquoson Schools has, and an example of it tonight with the Poquoson Art League and their support of the art programs within the schools. And I just really appreciate that. The citizens of Poquoson just continually step up and show their desire to do good things for the school systems, and I really appreciate that. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miller?
Oh, I was able to participate doing mock interviews at the Peninsula Workforce Development Career Day. 2,400 students participated that day, and we did have a pretty large group from Poquoson. They looked a little gun-shy going in for their interviews. They weren't too talkative. They're probably a little bit nervous, but they looked like they were well-behaved, well-dressed, and ready to go. And last week I was able to catch, I think, the ladies' doubles scrimmage on the tennis courts, and they were scrimmaging Menchville. And the dog and I enjoyed that for about 25 minutes watching the ladies play tennis. So it was just a scrimmage, but it was a nice afternoon. Enjoyed that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cass?
I'd like to send my condolences to Ms. McDowell in the loss of her husband. And I'd like to publicly go on record that Dr. Parrish has jinxed us, and we will get a snow. And we'll have to use so I hope that's in the minutes, because I'm going to come back to it.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Sidner.
I'd like to report that earlier this month I attended the SHAB, or the School Health Advisory Board, meeting at the elementary school. The Wellness Committee and nurses reported from the last quarter, and I appreciate the diligence of everyone working on the governor's scoreboard. I look forward to finding out how each of the schools do with that. And I will send out the meeting minutes as soon as I receive them. And I would like to thank the primary school for asking me to come read on Dr. Seuss Day. I read to an impressively well-behaved first grade class, Ms. King's class, and it was a lot of fun. So thank you for that.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, I would like to extend condolences to Ms. McDowell and her family on their loss. Our thoughts and prayers are definitely with you. I would also like to thank the school board staff for all your hard work on putting together the budget. I know it's tense times waiting for numbers to come in and trying to get things in by the deadlines that you guys have to meet, so I appreciate the work there. And all the awards, Kelly, the things that you were talking about, some of the other items that were mentioned today, we pump out some very good students, and we have an awful lot to be proud of when they not only when they graduate just from K through 12, they I don't know, they're just good students. And I'd like to thank the teachers, and again, couldn't do any of it without the parents, so I'd like to thank the parents for their support as well. I attended the band festival, and our band performed phenomenally well, and the rating they received was well deserved. And I would like to wish everybody a safe spring break. Enjoy your time off. Do we have any material for board review?
No, we do not.
Okay, with that, I will adjourn to the work session.